Zaddy. Fuck me, Zaddy.
Thanks, baby.
It was a normal day in Springfield, Kentucky. On that day, during the daytime hours, people were going about their routine. Stores were open. Cars were moving through the streets. Inside a local bank, workers and customers expected an ordinary moment. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. They were wrong. Within a short period of time, police calls began coming in. Officers were told that something serious was happening. A bank robbery was reported. A weapon was involved. Moments later, a gunshot would change everything. This was not a random crime. It was connected to a relationship that had been broken for a long time. The names tied to this case were Roosevelt Davis and Kadesha Aundrea Burch. They were once a couple. Their relationship was troubled, unstable, and filled with ongoing problems. What happened between them did not stay private. It spilled into the public and placed many lives at risk. As law enforcement rushed to the scene, roads were blocked. Sirens filled the air. People nearby were confused and afraid. Many did not understand how a personal relationship could lead to a violent public crime. One person would not survive the events of that day. As investigators worked to piece together what happened, a clear picture began to form. This was not a sudden moment. It was a result of choices, warning signs, and a situation that kept getting worse instead of stopping. This case raised serious questions. How did a toxic relationship turn into a bank robbery? Why was a gun involved? And could this outcome have been prevented? What happened in Springfield, Kentucky, on that day serves as a reminder that violence often begins long before the final moment. And when it reaches the public, everyone is affected. Before we begin, if stories the media ignore deserve justice, then subscribe to Unseen Crime Dossiers right now. Like this video so more people can see the truth. And comment below if you believe these voices deserve to be heard. Share this story, because awareness can change everything. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, where the stories the world tries to forget are finally uncovered. Stay with us, because every case you'll see is shocking, true, and you won't want to miss a single detail. Roosevelt Davis was an adult man living in or connected to the Springfield, Kentucky area. People who later learned about this case came to know his name through police reports and court records. Before the incident, he was not widely known outside his personal circle. Like many people, he had daily routines and personal struggles that were not visible to the public. Over time, his actions became part of a criminal investigation. Law enforcement would later focus on his movements, choices, and decisions in the days and hours leading up to the incident that changed the community. Kadesha Aundrea Burch was a young woman known to family members, friends, and people who interacted with her in everyday life. She had personal connections, responsibilities, and goals common to many adults her age. Her name became public only after the case unfolded. Before that moment, she was living her life outside of media attention. After the incident, investigators worked to understand her role, her circumstances, and how her connection to Roosevelt Davis influenced the events that later took place. Roosevelt Davis and Kadesha Aundrea Burch were involved in a personal relationship. They were not strangers brought together by chance. Their connection developed over time and involved shared experiences and private interactions. As with many relationships, this began outside public view. Friends or people close to them were aware that they were together. The relationship was not brief, and it played a direct role in the events that later occurred. Investigators would later confirm that this personal connection was a key factor in understanding the case. Over time, the relationship between Davis and Burch showed clear signs of difficulty. Reports indicate that their connection included repeated disagreements and instability. Instead of resolving problems, issues continued without clear solutions. Communication between them did not improve. There were ongoing conflicts that remained unresolved. These patterns are often seen in relationships that lack boundaries and support. The problems did not stop on their own, and no lasting changes were made to separate the two or reduce contact. As the relationship continued, the problems became more serious. Decisions made by both individuals increased tension rather than reducing it. The situation did not involve a single argument or one moment of conflict. It developed gradually through repeated issues. This type of ongoing instability is often identified by investigators as a warning sign. When conflicts remain active and unaddressed, they can lead to unsafe outcomes. In this case, the relationship did not return to a stable or neutral state before the incident occurred. Law enforcement later examined how the relationship influenced behavior leading up to the crime. Investigators looked at communication patterns, personal interactions, and the sequence of events that followed the breakdown of the relationship. The focus was not only on what happened during the crime, but also on what happened before it. This helped authorities understand that the incident was not random. The personal history between Davis and Burch was a central part of the case timeline. This section of the story shows how a personal relationship can move from private conflict into public harm when problems remain unresolved. The connection between Roosevelt Davis and Kadesha Aundrea Burch was not separate from the crime. It was part of its foundation. Understanding who they were and how they were connected is necessary to understand what happened next. The events that followed cannot be explained without first recognizing the role their relationship played in setting the stage for the incident. Frequent arguments were one of the earliest signs that the relationship was not stable. Disagreements happened often and did not stay small. These were not rare misunderstandings, but repeated conflicts that return again and again. When arguments happen regularly, they show that problems are not being solved. Instead of reaching clear agreements, the same issues continue to surface. This pattern can slowly weaken trust and create an unsafe situation over time. In this case, repeated disputes became part of everyday interaction and showed that the relationship was not moving in a healthy direction. Along with constant disagreements, there was ongoing tension between the two individuals. Tension means a situation where peace is missing even when no argument is happening. Conversations felt strained. Silence was uncomfortable. Small interactions carried pressure. This type of environment often makes people feel alert and uneasy at all times. When tension lasts for a long period, it affects decision-making and behavior. In this relationship, the strain did not fade away. It remained present and continued to grow, showing that the connection lacked stability and calm. Poor communication also played a major role. Clear communication allows people to explain concerns, listen, and make changes. In this relationship, communication did not function that way. Messages were misunderstood or ignored. Important topics were avoided instead of addressed. When people stopped listening to each other, problems increased instead of decreasing. Without open discussion, assumptions replaced facts. This breakdown made it difficult to fix issues or create solutions. Over time, the lack of proper communication allowed confusion and frustration to build. Another major warning sign was the absence of a clear separation. When a relationship becomes unhealthy, distance can reduce risk. In this case, separation did not happen in a firm or lasting way. Contact continued even though problems remained active. Without a clear break, conflict stayed connected to daily life. This made it harder for either person to reset or gain clarity. Continuing interaction without boundaries often keeps harmful patterns alive. The lack of separation allowed unresolved issues to stay present instead of fading. These warning signs did not appear suddenly. They developed over time and became more noticeable as the relationship continued. Frequent arguments, tension, communication problems, and ongoing contact all existed at the same time. When multiple warning signs appear together, the risk of escalation increases. Each sign adds pressure to the situation. Instead of improving, the relationship became more complicated. The combination of these factors created an unstable environment that required attention and intervention. People close to situations like this may not always recognize the danger early. Repeated conflicts can seem normal when they happen slowly. Tension can be ignored when it becomes familiar. Poor communication may feel easier than difficult conversations. Staying connected may seem simpler than separating. However, these patterns are commonly identified by professionals as indicators of risk. In this case, the warning signs were present and active before the incident occurred. This section explains how relationship warning signs can exist long before a crime takes place. None of these signs alone cause violence, but together they create conditions where serious outcomes become possible. Understanding these indicators helps explain how private problems can move toward public harm. The situation did not change direction because the warning signs were not addressed or resolved. What followed cannot be understood without first recognizing how these patterns shaped the path forward. As time moved forward, the problems in the relationship did not stop. Issues that already existed remained active and unresolved. There was no clear effort that led to lasting change. Disagreements continued without resolution, and instability stayed present in daily interactions. Instead of improving through time or distance, the situation remained connected and complicated. This ongoing pattern meant that earlier warning signs did not fade away. They became part of normal behavior, allowing risk to increase without being addressed. During this period, decisions made by those involved did not reduce tension. Actions taken were often reactive rather than planned. Choices were influenced by frustration, pressure, and lack of direction. When people face repeated conflict without solutions, they may act without fully thinking through consequences. In this case, decisions did not lead to safety or clarity. Each choice added another layer of difficulty, moving the situation further away from stability and toward uncertainty. Communication during this stage continued to be ineffective. Conversations did not result in understanding or agreement. Important discussions were delayed or avoided altogether. When communication fails, misunderstandings grow. Assumptions replace facts and trust weakens. Without clear dialogue, it becomes harder to correct mistakes or stop harmful patterns. The lack of productive conversation allowed problems to continue without interruption, increasing the chance of escalation. The absence of clear boundaries also contributed to the situation getting worse. Boundaries help limit contact and reduce conflict when problems are ongoing. In this case, boundaries were not firmly established or maintained. Continued interaction meant continued exposure to unresolved issues. Without limits, small conflicts had space to grow into larger ones. This ongoing contact allowed the situation to remain active instead of cooling down. Outside support or intervention did not change the direction of events. When relationships face repeated problems, outside guidance can sometimes reduce risk. There is no indication that effective intervention stopped the progression of the situation. Without outside influence, the same patterns continued unchecked. The lack of interruption meant that the relationship followed its existing path without correction. Over time, this increased the likelihood of serious consequences. As these factors combined, the situation shifted from unstable to dangerous. Relationship problems remained present. Choices continued to worsen outcomes, and no steps were taken to slow the progression. Escalation does not happen in a single moment. It develops through repeated actions that fail to resolve conflict. In this case, escalation occurred because nothing worked to reverse direction. Each unresolved issue added momentum to the next. This stage of events explains how the case moved closer to the crime. Ongoing problems created pressure. Poor decisions removed safer options. Escalation replaced resolution. Understanding this phase is important because it shows the buildup that happened before the incident occurred. The crime did not emerge suddenly. It followed a series of developments that increased risk step by step. What happened next can only be understood by recognizing how this buildup formed the final path forward. The crime unfolded during normal daytime activity in Springfield, Kentucky. A local bank became the center of the incident. Banks are public places where workers and customers expect routine service. On this day, that expectation ended when a robbery took place. The act was not spontaneous to those involved, but appeared sudden to everyone else. The presence of crime in a familiar setting immediately created risk for people who were not connected to the situation. During the robbery, a gun was involved. The introduction of a weapon changed the level of danger. When a firearm is present, outcomes can become unpredictable. People inside the building had limited control over their safety. Employees and customers were forced into a situation they did not choose. Law enforcement later focused on how the weapon was used and how its presence affected the sequence of events. At a certain point during the incident, a gunshot was fired. A gunshot is a critical moment in any public crime because it increases harm and urgency. The sound alone can cause confusion and panic in surrounding areas. It also signals that the situation has moved beyond threat into direct violence. After the gunshot, the event could no longer be resolved without serious consequences. Police would later confirm that this moment marked a turning point in the case. As a result of the gunshot, one person was killed. This loss of life was the most serious outcome of the incident. Investigators worked to determine how the fatal moment occurred and who was responsible. The death transformed the case from a robbery into a homicide investigation. From that point forward, all actions taken by law enforcement focus on evidence collection, witness accounts, and establishing a clear timeline of responsibility. The danger did not remain limited to one individual. The community surrounding the bank was placed at risk. Nearby businesses, pedestrians, and drivers were affected by the response to the crime. Roads were impacted, and normal activity was interrupted. Public safety became the immediate priority. When violence occurs in a shared space, the impact extends beyond those directly involved. The entire area must respond to the risk. Emergency services responded to control the situation. Police secured the scene to prevent further harm. Medical personnel addressed injuries and confirmed the fatality. Investigators began documenting evidence, including surveillance footage and physical details from the location. Witnesses were identified and interviewed. Each step was necessary to establish what happened and in what order. This process is standard in serious crimes involving public danger. This section explains how a chain of actions led to irreversible consequences. A bank robbery introduced risk. A gun increased that risk. A gunshot created direct violence. A person lost their life. The surrounding community was affected by the threat and response. These events did not occur in isolation. They formed a connected sequence that defines the crime itself. Understanding this progression is essential to understanding the full scope of what occurred and why the case carried lasting impact. The crime took place during regular business hours in Springfield, Kentucky, when people were following normal routines. A local bank became a location where the situation unfolded. Customers were present, and employees were carrying out daily tasks. Nothing suggested immediate danger at first. Then a robbery began inside the building. The act disrupted the normal environment of the bank and immediately placed everyone inside in a vulnerable position. A public space meant for financial services was turned into a crime scene within minutes. As the robbery continued, it became clear that a gun was involved. The presence of a firearm raised a level of risk for everyone in the area. A gun changes how people respond because it removes safe options. Employees and customers had limited ability to leave or protect themselves. Law enforcement later examined how the weapon entered the situation and how it influenced behavior inside the bank. Once the firearm appeared, the possibility of serious harm increased. At some point during the robbery, a gunshot was fired. This moment shifted the situation from a criminal threat to an active act of violence. A gunshot creates immediate danger and signals loss of control. The sound alone can cause confusion, movement, and fear among people nearby. From that moment forward, the situation could no longer end without severe consequences. Police would later focus heavily on this exact point in the timeline. Following the gunshot, one person was killed. This outcome changed the classification of the crime entirely. What began as a robbery became a homicide investigation. Emergency responders were required to confirm the death and secure the area. Investigators began the process of identifying how the fatal injury occurred. This step marked the most serious result of the incident and shifted the focus toward accountability and legal responsibility. The danger extended beyond inside of the bank. The surrounding community was placed at risk as the situation unfolded. Nearby streets, businesses, and residents were affected. Police activity increased throughout the area. Roads were controlled and movement was limited. Public safety became the priority. When violence happens in a public place, people who are not involved can still be harmed. This event disrupted daily life for many individuals in the area. Law enforcement moved quickly to contain the situation. Officers secured the bank and nearby locations to prevent further harm. Medical teams responded to address injuries and confirm the fatality. Investigators documented the scene and gathered physical evidence. Surveillance systems were reviewed and witnesses were identified. Each action followed standard procedure for serious crimes involving weapons and loss of life. This sequence explains how a public crime reached its most serious outcome. A robbery introduced danger into a shared space. The involvement of a gun increased that danger. A gunshot created direct violence. One person died as a result. The surrounding community faced risk and disruption. These events formed a connected chain rather than separate moments. Understanding this progression is necessary to understand the full scope of the crime and its impact on public safety. Law enforcement arrived shortly after reports of the incident were received. Officers responded from multiple units to ensure control of the situation. Their first responsibility was to assess immediate danger and protect lives. Police vehicles were positioned near the location to block access points and manage movement. Officers entered the scene carefully, following safety procedures used in cases involving weapons. Their arrival marked a shift from an active event to an official emergency response. Once officers were on scene, the area was secured. This step was necessary to prevent further harm and preserve evidence. Entry and exit points were restricted. People inside the area were directed to remain where they were, or move only when instructed. Barriers were placed around the bank and surrounding streets. Securing the location allowed responders to work without interference and ensured that the situation did not spread beyond the immediate area. After the scene was stabilized, the investigation began. Investigators focused on understanding exactly what happened and in what order. They examined physical evidence inside and around the bank. Surveillance systems were identified and reviewed. Objects connected to the incident were documented and collected. Each item was logged to maintain accuracy. This process helped investigators begin building a timeline of events based on facts rather than assumptions. Witnesses were then located and interviewed. These included employees, customers, and people in nearby areas. Officers asked clear questions to gather details about actions, movements, and descriptions. Statements were recorded carefully to avoid errors. Witness accounts were compared with physical evidence to confirm consistency. This step was important for identifying gaps and verifying what occurred during the incident. As the investigation progressed, attention turned toward identifying a suspect. Law enforcement reviewed evidence gathered from the scene along with witness descriptions. Surveillance footage provided visual information that helped narrow focus. Investigators also examined prior connections between individuals involved in the case. This allowed authorities to understand how the crime may have developed. Through this process, a suspect was identified based on available information. Once a suspect was identified, law enforcement worked to confirm details and locate the individual. Officers coordinated with other agencies when needed. Background information was reviewed to support identification. This phase required careful handling to ensure accuracy and avoid mistakes. Investigators followed legal procedures while continuing to gather supporting evidence. The goal was to establish responsibility through verified facts. This section shows how police response follows a structured process. Officers arrive to stop further danger. The area is secured to protect evidence. An investigation begins to document what happened. A suspect is identified through collected information. Each step builds on the previous one. Understanding this process explains how law enforcement moves from emergency response to accountability. The response in this case followed standard procedures used in serious crimes involving public safety. The events that occurred in Springfield, Kentucky, quickly affected the surrounding community. News of the crime spread through local channels, social media, and word of mouth. People in nearby neighborhoods became aware that a serious incident had occurred. The sudden presence of danger in a normally calm area created immediate concern. Residents began to take precautions, altering their routines and limiting movement in the area. Fear spread among those who were close to the scene. Local businesses temporarily closed or adjusted operating hours. Commuters and pedestrians moved with caution while traveling near the location. Awareness of the incident extended beyond immediate witnesses to the broader public. This reaction is common in situations where violence occurs in public spaces. The perception of risk alone can disrupt daily life, even if the threat is no longer active. Questions remained after the initial response. Community members, employees, and bystanders sought to understand what happened and why. Investigators and law enforcement provided updates, but many details were unavailable immediately. People wanted clarity on who was involved, how the event escalated, and whether additional risks remained. The lack of complete information left uncertainty that affected both individuals and a collective sense of security. Families of those directly connected to the incident were affected. Relatives of the victim, witnesses, and others nearby had to cope with unexpected disruption. Even those not present at the scene experienced concern and stress as they awaited information. Practical challenges, such as school schedules, work responsibilities, and daily routines, were also impacted. The ripple effect extended beyond the immediate location, showing how one event can influence multiple households. Community trust was also shaken. Residents who had previously felt secure in their environment now questioned safety in public spaces. Confidence in daily activities, such as visiting stores or walking near businesses, was reduced. This shift can influence long-term behavior, as individuals reconsider how they interact with their surroundings. Law enforcement presence and updates help manage concern, but the perception of risk may remain until the situation is fully resolved. Local authorities took steps to address the impact on the community. Police and city officials increased communication with residents. Public safety messages were distributed to provide guidance and updates. Investigators worked to ensure transparency about the ongoing investigation. These measures aim to restore order, provide factual information, and reduce uncertainty among the public. Consistent updates help the community understand the actions being taken to manage the situation. The overall effect of crime on Springfield demonstrates how a single event can influence a broader population. Fear, uncertainty, and disruption were present even for those who were not directly involved. Families adjusted to unexpected circumstances, and trust in routine safety measures was challenged. Understanding the community impact highlights the connection between individual incidents and their wider consequences. The event serves as a clear example of how public safety and social stability are affected by serious crimes. Toxic relationships can create environments where risk increases over time. When conflict are constant and unresolved, interactions may lead to unsafe outcomes. Patterns of control, repeated arguments, and ongoing tension are often indicators that a connection has become unhealthy. Awareness of these patterns is important because they can escalate if left unchecked. Recognizing unhealthy dynamics early can prevent situations from worsening. One of the primary lessons from this case is that warning signs should not be ignored. Signs such as frequent disagreements, poor communication, and lack of boundaries indicate that intervention may be necessary. Observing these signals allows individuals and those around them to take steps to reduce risk. Ignoring consistent indicators can result in situations that move beyond personal conflict into public harm. Early recognition is a practical tool for reducing the chance of escalation. Another lesson is that poor decisions in response to ongoing conflict can increase danger. Choices made without planning or consideration often compound existing problems. When attempts to manage tension fail, situations can progress toward more serious consequences. Understanding how decisions influence outcomes helps explain how a series of actions may lead to severe events. Careful evaluation of options can prevent escalation and improve safety. Violence does not only impact the people directly involved. When serious acts occur in public or shared spaces, families, neighbors, and bystanders are affected. Daily routines are disrupted, local communities experience uncertainty, and trust in safety can decline. This broader impact illustrates that individual conflicts can create widespread consequences. Considering potential effect on others emphasizes the importance of managing and resolving disputes before they escalate. Community awareness and preparedness are also important lessons. Observing changes in behavior, remaining alert to patterns of tension, and supporting individuals at risk can reduce potential outcomes. Education about warning signs and safe responses strengthens overall safety. Systems of support, such as law enforcement, social services, or local resources, can provide guidance when situations show signs of danger. Communities that respond proactively are better equipped to prevent escalation. Legal and safety frameworks are part of the lessons learned from this case. Understanding how authorities respond to incidents helps illustrate the connection between personal choices and public outcomes. Law enforcement procedures, evidence collection, and investigation timelines are structured to protect both individuals and the broader community. Following established protocols ensures that events are documented accurately and accountability is maintained. Finally, the events demonstrate that prevention is always more effective than reaction. Addressing warning signs early, creating boundaries, and seeking assistance reduces the likelihood of severe outcomes. Recognizing that violence can stem from unresolved personal conflicts underscores the importance of proactive management. These key lessons provide a framework for understanding risk, responding appropriately, and preventing harm before it occurs. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly, and trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, we want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard. Thanks you all for watching.